Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We'll just give it another 30 seconds or so, see who else comes on, and we'll get started. Hope everyone's having a good day and looking forward to this. I certainly am. I've got a few people joining us now, and we'll get started just to do the basic introduction and let everybody know that welcome to the webinar. First and foremost, thank you so much for joining us on a Wednesday night. Really appreciate it. I'm Andrew Carter. I'm here to show you the #1 single best lead generation tool for your business, bar none. Now, this will make you stand out so completely and transform your business and create massive growth in it more than any other strategy out there. Now, I've had an extensive business background before, and I can state categorically that out of all the strategies as a marketer, all the things I've learned and shared, all the things I've seen with the businesses I've grown, this is undoubtedly the #1 strategy that works better than anything else. And that's why I'm excited to be sharing this with you. So, look, just letting you know, there is no big sales pitch at the end of this. I am running a weekend event for people who would like to know more. And so I'm going to mention that at the end of it. But that's, if you want to get involved, you can. So look, I am going to cover a lot of incredible content here. I want to give you so much information that you can use in your business, but I'm going to move through it quickly. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and I'll get to them at the end. So look, I'm here to, as I said, going to talk to you about the single greatest marketing tool available and how to use that to make massive improvements to your current business. Or if you're not in business, believe it or not, you use this to get established in one and stand out from all competition. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, what business you're in. It doesn't matter if it's service or goods orientated. It doesn't matter if it's a traditional bricks and mortar type store or purely online. If you're just an online influencer, this will still work for you. It is the single most important strategy you can implement in your business. So look, let me just share the slideshow. And sorry, we'll just get this underway. Always with the technical issues. It should have started. Right. Now, what I want to talk to you about is a well-proven strategy that's used by the big names, the likes of Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, Robert Kiyosaki, and many others that you know, but it's now being used by thousands of business owners just like you. And it works for them, and I'll show you some examples in this tutorial so you can also see it'll work for you. Now, what is it, do you think, that made these guys the go-to expert or authority in your eyes? You see, they had to do something to become famous, to be perceived as the go-to authority or expert. So what was it? Well, believe it or not, to be seen as the authority, first they became an author. Now, please don't leave just yet. Stick with me. Don't give up thinking that that's all too hard or will take too long and you don't have the time, because I will show you how they've done it and how you can do it. And you can complete the content for a book in as little as a few hours. That will absolutely transform your business. And no, I'm not talking about ebooks, and I'm not talking about having one written by AI, right? So look, the perception in society is that people have to become experts and then be able to write a book, but that's just not the case. You see, all the experts I've ever dealt with, they actually wrote the book first based on what they already knew. And from the book, they were perceived as an expert, and that's what attracted a huge following. And as a result of that, they then created the products and services they sell. This positioning them as a go-to authority, right? And this is the important part. The book will establish you as an expert in your industry because you want to position yourself as an authority, and a book does that better than anything else. When people perceive you as a go-to authority or expert in a certain field, they actively pursue you to purchase your products, services, and advice, and in fact, pay more for it. And you know this is true. You know you've done this yourself, right? Look, there's only two things to being in business. They're both barriers these days. One is to gain attention. And we all know that it's getting harder and harder to gain attention now than ever before, both online and offline. And once you have got somebody's attention, the next biggest barrier to selling is trust. People won't buy because of a perceived lack of trust, and building that trust can take a long time. A book about you and your business is the best way to gain attention and build massive trust and credibility. There's simply nothing else like it in the marketplace. Why? Well, being an author ranks in the top 10% of professions in terms of prestige. You are just held in high esteem and well regarded, right? Authors are trusted, as is their message, and a large part of that comes from people believing it's difficult to write a book and be published. And it is, unless you have something like this tutorial to show you the simple tips and tricks and techniques to get it done quickly and easily, even if you can't type or write. So first and foremost, authors are and always have been highly respected. Society has always looked at published authors as experts in their field or as the authority, because when you're published, you automatically assume that mantle in your field. And you don't have to state that you are the expert or that you're credible. The book does that for you. The book acts as a third-party independent advocate of you and your business. So you never have to go around saying, I'm the expert or I'm the authority. Merely being the author of the book on the subject, the perception is that you must be. All right. And this is all about perception. This is all about positioning yourself as number one in your customer's mind. And notice I'm saying in your customer's mind. Most people think, oh, I can't be the authority, I can't be the expert. No, but you can be in the mind of your customers, of your tribe. You might be in a business that is like many other businesses, and you may have competitors out there that you think are better than you, but whatever message it is that they're telling will be different to the way you tell your story, your message, and that's how you attract your tribe, your customers, and you want to position yourself as an authority in their mind, okay? Now, notice we're talking here about an actual physical book, printed and published. You can't gain any real credibility with an ebook, and you're not going to get noticed, yet alone attain celebrity or expert authority status with one. So we're talking about an actual printed book. Now, regardless of what business you're in, you need a physical book to create your credibility and personal brand awareness and grab attention to be seen as the expert. And then you use that to drive traffic to your online site. And this is how it works. Now, when it comes to sales, we all know you need to gain a prospect's attention and you need to gain trust. Being an author gains attention, right? People are hungry for information. They're hungry for the answers they need. And the internet has way too much information, and a lot of that's contradictory or from dubious sources, right? A lot of false information out there. So where do you go to get a trusted information? A book. Maybe you remember that time before the internet, before Google and Yahoo and Alta Vista. Where did we go for information then? Books. And guess what? People still do that today. The advent of the internet has not killed the printed book like it has for magazines and periodicals, right? If anything, it strengthened the demand and the need for it, especially during COVID lockdowns, when the demand for books, especially the how-to type books I'm talking about here, went through the roof. Now, about 88% of all book sales are still physical books, with only 12% being the online Kindle type ebooks and audio books, okay? Now, here's the truly beautiful part. When someone reads your book, you then have their attention completely and for at least a few hours. Now, I understand that maybe not all at once, you might get interrupted, but if they finish your book, they have effectively had a one-on-one session with you for a couple of hours. And what has effectively happened is that you, the author, have just spent several hours with this person, building credibility and trust and positioning yourself as the authority, as the go-to expert. You've done it without ever having left your home or ever having spent 1 minute with that person. So this is ultimate form of leveraging your time. So the book, it builds trust and credibility. It'll position you as the expert. It leverages your time, and it will also get you access to clients you may not have otherwise been able to reach. I'll talk more about that later. Positioning yourself as the authority makes your competition completely irrelevant. Now, I want to look at how to do this for you really quickly and easily. But before I do so, I'm going to have to talk about the myths and misconceptions that are out there, because there are a lot of them. And in a sense, it's a good thing, because the general public, or more importantly, your potential customers or clients, they think this way. They think that these things are true. And that's why they respect authors and perceive them to be so capable and credible, because they've overcome these issues. So let me dispel the myths for you now so you can concentrate on making your own authority marketing book. And the first one is, and probably what's on your mind, it takes a long time to write a book. Well, no, it doesn't. And you don't even have to write it. That's what we're going to cover here. So look, it's really quite simple. You must know what the introduction of your book is. You know what you want to tell your reader about, especially if it's a business book. You know what the end result is. You want to get them to take action. You want them to use your products or services. So you know how the book's got to end. You must know how you're going to start it. What's the logical bridge between the beginning and the end? What are you going to do to get people to make that step? So you put those steps in place, you write them down, and that will actually be the chapters, the titles of your chapters. Under each of those chapters, what do you need to talk about? What points do you need to cover in that chapter to be able to move on to the next chapter logically, and do that with each chapter to get to the end? Now, keep in mind, what sort of clients or customers are you trying to attract? What are the ones you're trying to repel? That's a big issue too. Keep a really clear idea about that as you progress, right? Now, with each chapter, if you've got it in order and you think about it, put down the bullet points. Then all you've got to do is simply pick up your phone, your tablet, or your computer, and just hit record, and simply read out the title of that chapter, and then read out the bullet point and start addressing that bullet point. Just talk to the bullet point until you've run out of things to say, and then go on to the next one. Right? That's all that's required. Now, what will happen here is you don't want to exceed around 150 pages, okay? We know statistically that 180 pages, less people are going to buy your book. So you want to keep it under 150 pages, because above that, less people finish reading it, and you really want them to finish reading your book, because only then are they likely to recommend it to others, or to even pass on a copy to their friend. So try and keep it under 150 pages, which works out at around 30,000 words. Now, given the normal rate of speech, which is probably slightly slower than I'm talking now, I'm trying to get a lot of information out to you in the limited time we've got. You should be able to speak 30,000 words in just 2 hours and 47 minutes. Okay, understand what I'm saying here? You can create the entire content for your book in under 3 hours. All you got to do then is take that recording and have it transcribed. Now, there are a lot of ways to do that, okay? I use Otter AI. I think it's a fantastic idea. It's a real-time transcription service. It translates speech to text with reasonable accuracy. Maybe there's better ways to do it. You could instead have a person transcribe it for you, and you can find them to do that on any of those sort of freelance sites, Fiverr.com, Freelancer.com, Upworks.com, Guru.com, or anything else like that, okay? I still think getting it done yourself is the easiest way. And if you had Otter AI, you don't even have to record it. You can just have that app running and talk, and it will be putting that into a Word document for you. Now, one of our authors, Ian Marsh, he actually created his book, The Inconvenient Truth About Business Success, in exactly this way, right? He merely recorded his thoughts for each chapter, and then he had it transcribed. Now, the publisher did the rest. Now, Ian knows exactly how many clients that book brought him, and he knows the value of each of those clients. And he says that that book that he completed in half a day without ever touching a keyboard or picking up a pen, that's generated almost $600,000 for his business. Why can't you do the same? Well, you can. That's the whole point. So there are plenty of inexpensive options available to have an entire book written for you in your words. And in your words is the really important part here, right? Because another myth is that you need to have a university education and degree to be taken seriously as an author and to be able to write in an academic way. Please don't do that, right? Even if you have a degree, or even if you are well educated, just think of it like this. Have you ever read an academic paper, right? They're normally boring and full of jargon. They're only suitable for other academics in the same field. You need to be writing something that pretty much anyone can read and understand. And to do that, you want to write, or in this case, just talk, as if you were conversing with a 15-year-old. Talk the way you talk and let your sense of humor and personality come through. That's what the reader connects with. That's what builds that bond of trust between the reader and author. Now, I've included here a picture of Dr. John Gray, because everyone knows of him and his Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And you can see after his name, he has PhD. He is a doctor. What I need to make known here is he wasn't when he wrote this book. He wrote the book, and then he took that and he used that and submitted it as a thesis. And it was because of that that he was then granted the PhD, okay? look, the guy's not even a very good speller. He says himself, thank God for spell checker. So, yeah, just write for a 15-year-old audience. Okay, another myth. You have to create the book yourself to have your name on it. No. Do you really believe presidents and prime ministers have the time to sit and write or even dictate their memoirs? Have you ever seen some of those athletes who are struggling to put more than 2 coherent sentences together come out with lengthy autobiographies? Leaving you wondering, well, how did they manage that? And the answer is actually simple. All of those books have been ghostwritten, okay? Ghost writers are professional writers who interview you, learn your story, what the desired outcome is for your book. They learn about the way you speak, the language you use, the way you phrase or turn a phrase, or that your standard sort of spiel. And from there, they go and write a complete manuscript for you. The work is then published as your own with your name as the author. The ghostwriter's name does not appear anywhere on the book. Now, you can find ghostwriters through the online search or through the freelance services I mentioned earlier. Okay, another myth about writing a book and getting it published is that you'll be left with a garage full of books. I never knew that this was an issue, but people tell me that this is one of their biggest concerns. Well, I can't see how. I mean, this can easily be avoided by proper marketing of your book before, during, and after it is published. We routinely move 1,000 and 2,000 books that are pre-sold before the book is even printed. We have pre-sold 5,000 books many times, 10,000 on occasion. The highest we've done, we've actually pre-sold 21,500 books before. And I'm going to show you that technique here. So this should not be a concern. You could already pre-sell those books, and proper marketing means that you'll never have that problem anyway. Most people just don't know how to do it. That's part of the reason you're here. Okay, another myth about writing a book. Books don't make any money. This is a classic. All right. It's true in many ways, right? It is true if you're using a traditional publisher, and I'll talk more about publishing at the end of this. There's 3 different types of publishing. Most people only know of 2. But if you do it through an entrepreneurial publisher, it allows you to make large amounts of money before your book is even published, and a lot more once it is, right? One of the ways to do that is to sell advertising in your book. And the secret here is not to call it advertising. If you're writing a book on information, a how-to type book, there's only so much room in it, right? And you need to give your readers as much help as you can. So therefore, you owe it to them to provide as many avenues to get other information and assistance. So you should be including a resources section in the back of your book. And in that, you can sell pages to other businesses to advertise their products or services. Make sure they're complementary, not competitive businesses, right? But keep this in mind. The life of a book is about 5 years. And you can substantially increase the price of what they would currently be paying for magazine or other print advertising to advertise in your book. Now, depending on what industry you're in, a page in a book for advertising can easily sell anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000, easily. And one of our authors used exactly this technique with her first book, How to Grow Your Business Faster Than Your Competitors. She generated just over $40,000 by selling 4 spots at $10,000, $9,997. So that's $40K she made before the book was even printed. And she's just one of the authors who've succeeded using that method. All right, next myth. To position you as the authority, the book has to be about you. No, you don't need to be an expert to be seen as the expert. So you've got to understand that celebrity, authority, and status is all about perception, positioning, and passion. You obviously have the passion. You've gone and done what you do. So now it's about positioning you and making that perception in people's mind. So what you can do is you can gain authority to leverage off the credibility and knowledge of already established leaders and authorities in your field. And that can be done through a compilation book. This is a really easy way to have a book completed, as you simply interview a select number of people and have those interviews transcribed. Then you have them compiled and published. This will create what's known as a halo effect, meaning that if you, the author, interviewing and writing about these successful and knowledgeable people, then by association, you too must be successful and knowledgeable about that topic. At least that's how people perceive it, and authority is all about perception. Of course, the reality is you do become far more knowledgeable in that particular area because you just interviewed the experts on it and learnt from them. Now, this particular book is an excellent example of a compilation book, and this one actually made over $143,000 profit before it was even printed. It actually generated over $250,000 in sales in just 2 weeks with this one strategy. And you could do exactly the same thing. In fact, we've shown it to many of our students how to do this, and they have made anywhere from $50,000 to a couple of $100,000 doing it. Now, you can see there the book is called Top Franchise CEO Secrets Revealed. Now, what's important to note is the author himself was not a top franchisor. He just wasn't. And he had just developed the Mars Venus coaching franchise with Dr. John Gray, and he was getting it established, right? So to give that brand and himself real credibility and build immediate trust, he used the compilation model and he created the halo effect. See, he worked out if his brand, if the Mars Venus was positioned amongst other well-known trusted franchise brands and owners like Boost Juice and La Porchetta Pizza and Clark Rubber, stuff like that, his brand would receive similar credibility by association. So he interviewed 14 franchises, he recorded the interviews, and he had those transcribed. And then he just laid the transcripts out in the book as a compilation of interviews. So effectively someone else, or in this case 14 someone else's, wrote the book for him, because he just interviewed them and leveraged off the credibility of those famous people. He gained the credibility alongside them as he was the author of the book and he was positioned in the book. Now, what's even better is because in this case they were all franchise leaders, it gave him an instant distribution network for that book. So he had thousands of outlets, franchisee outlets, he could sell through because of all the franchises being in the book. So there's a lot of advantage here, okay? Now, I'll have a look at, I want to show you how he made the money behind this, because it's quite interesting. As I say, the book was retailing for $29.95, but he generated over $250,000 in literally just a couple of weeks. And this is before the manuscript was even completed, yet alone sent away for printing. So as I said, there's 14 contributors in the book. And what he did is he approached all of them and he said, look, to give you more exposure and credibility, I will include you in the book, okay? But for you, in order for you to do that, help me make it a bestseller. I want you to pre-purchase 1,000 copies of the book. Now, you'll get them at a wholesale or cheap price, so just over the cost of the book. So if the book retails for $29.95, you can get those books for $9.95. That's actually really cheap advertising if you think about it for those books, right? Because that company can then turn around and sell those books at the full retail price, in which case they'd actually make a profit of $20,000. Or they could give them away to clients as a promotional tool. They could use them at trade shows, at franchise conventions, to build credibility and maybe even sell more franchises, which is actually what happened. Or those franchisors could give them to their current franchisees and let those people sell them in their stores to make additional income. So what he did is he approached 14 contributors, told them to pre-order 1,000 books each at $9.95, and that equals $139,300. Then he approached other businesses, like I just said before, about selling resources or advertising in the back end, and businesses that were relevant to the franchise sector. And so he arranged for them to advertise. Because if you're looking to buy a franchise, you'd need a franchise lawyer, an accountant who understands the industry. You might need a franchising consultant, an insurance agent, and maybe even a specialist broker who understands the industry and can help find and structure an appropriate loan for you. So the author found those people and offered them the chance to advertise in the back as well. But this time they only had to pre-purchase 500 copies, but at half price, $14.95. And same thing, they could give those copies away as powerful third-party advertising if they wanted, or they could sell them at full retail price and make all their money back, plus that much again as profit, which is phenomenal when you think about it. That's a true win-win situation, which is what we should all be trying to create in business. So 15 advertisers agreed to that, which generated another 7,500 book sales and $112,125 in sales. Now, obviously, you have to subtract the cost of producing the books at the time. And total revenue was over $250,000. The cost of the production of books, just over $107,000. So the total in profits is almost $144,000. Think about the number of businesses that will never make that much profit in a year, and this was made in just 2 weeks without even the product being made. Now, what's even better is 21,500 books have been sold, making this book an instant bestseller, which makes it far more attractive to bookstores, and it generates massive free PR on the day it's released, which then generates even more sales. So could you do this? Of course you could. This is the whole point. Even though this book was on franchising, it could be done on a collection of real estate agents. Same concept, right? Interview all the best real estate agents. Maybe you're in health or some naturopath, something like that. You want to do a thing on all the different types of alternative health or natural health. Go out and interview all the different natural health professionals, chiropractors, physios, massage therapists, other naturopaths, nutritionists. But the list would go on, and you could do a book about that. The number of potential industries you can do this in is huge. Now, to prove the point that this particular example wasn't just luck, that same author has done the exact same thing multiple times in different fields. Other graduates of our course have done the exact same thing. And the one I really like, I want to show you, is this guy, Pete Burden from New Zealand, because he literally just copied that franchise book model I showed you, but he did it in his home country. So Pete released New Zealand Top Franchise Leaders Secrets Revealed, doing exactly the same thing as the last guy. In fact, you can see the layout looks very much the same. And he generated over $120,000 in just 2 weeks before the book was even printed. And obviously, it's only gone on to increase from there. So you can see that this works each time you do it, and you can do it on many different topics. It really is exciting what is possible. But let's get back to generating money from your book, because that's the important part. And look, there's far more potential than most people will ever realize. And that's what most people look at, the money made from the sale of the books, or in this case, advertising space sold in the book. However, the real wealth from a book comes from the credibility and positioning the book gives you and the other sales you make as a result of that. Because by driving people from your book to your website, you create a large database of hot clients, especially if you keep a good CRM system. And that is ultimately where the money is made, from sales of other products or services you offer through your website to a list of pre-qualified and hot buyers. Okay. Now, I want to talk about this example because this is pretty relevant. Conrad Bobolak attended our 3-day workshop without having an established business. And by that, I mean, like, he had not only did he not have a business, he didn't have a business name. He didn't have an idea. He didn't have any premises. He didn't have leads. He had nothing, right? And he learned about the game behind the game at the workshop and immediately understood it. And he was just blown away by the potential of it. So he decided right there and then to set up his ultimate lifestyle, to work where he wanted, when he wanted, and he decided he was going to pay himself $1 million a year. Now, he'd never earned anything like that before. He was working for the National Australia Bank before that, right? So during the workshop, he started to craft his book around the game behind the game. I don't have time to explain that here, but he completed his book, Australian Property Finance Made Simple, which became a bestseller. And he created his websites and a YouTube channel around the book designed to attract his ideal client and repel those who aren't. So he wasn't wasting time on the wrong people. How many of you have done that? I think we're all guilty of having done that in business at some stage. So as I say, he's now used the book. The book alone has created a company from nothing and is now paying himself. That company's paying him $1 million a year in income. Yet to this day, he has not spent even $1 on advertising the business. Not one. He spent some money on marketing the book because it's the book that generates the leads to make this all happen. Now, as Conrad says, the real benefit of the book is that it reaches the type of clients he wants, but he could never reach. Airline pilots flying internationally read his book on the flight deck, then contact him wanting to do business. Expat surgeons looking to come back to Australia and trying to minimise their tax, read his book and contact him ready to buy, right? These people are already avid fans and trust him enough to do multi-million-dollar deals, even without meeting him face-to-face, all because of his book. This is just incredible, right? Now, what's really fascinating is Conrad was so impressed by how this has all worked and how much money it's generated for him. He's got 2 friends in exactly the same field, and he gave his entire system to them. Everything he does, everything that he generates, all of his sales scripts, he gave the same lawyers, the same website developers. He gave them absolutely everything. And he told them, just do what I do and you'll make the same amount of money. He earned $1 million a year from this strategy, and his mates make $0. What do you think the difference is? They don't have a book. For whatever reason, they didn't understand that step was the linchpin. That was the thing that tied it all together. That was the thing that made it happen. And they either just didn't understand that or weren't interested in doing it. And so, as I say, you can see the big difference it makes there. All right, back-end products. This is where what we can develop in association with your book, and the book will lead to sales of those products. and that's where you can make a lot more money. So we actually show people how to create those products from the content of your book and sell them to people who've already read your book, because people who read your book and make that connection will want more from you. You know this, or you've seen this firsthand. Tony Robbins, classic example, either gives a book away or sells it. You know, a lot of the people that read that are going to get interested enough to want more from him. They're fascinated. What's the next step? Well, you can step into one of his courses, an online course, or you can receive packages of courses through the mail. And you can see that this is what we call an ascension ladder or a value ladder, stepping up in price. Obviously, not everyone who read his book is going to buy a course, but enough people will to make it worth his money. Of those who've done that, a lot of them are still quite excited, and they'll go to an event. And it might just be a one or 2 day event. But those who attend those might be inspired to go on to a 3-day event. And the percentage of those will want to go on to a 4 or 5 day event. So you get people going from the events into the boot camps and workshops, which usually last a week. You can see the step up in price at each stage. Now, obviously, you're losing people at every step on the ladder, but the amount of people that people are spending at each step is dramatically increased. And as you can see, when you get to his high-end coaching, it literally is $85,000 a year. You don't need too many people in that program to make it worth your while. So how does this apply to you? Because you can do exactly the same thing. You can give your book away or sell it to get people in and build your authority, your status, and your credibility. And from that, you can sell them into a course. I understand events aren't for everyone, live events, but for those who want to do it, you can build on the course that you've done before, or you can run an event based on your book, videotape that, and use that, break that down into video, audio, and written material, and that's how you can create a course. And then, of course, you too can do group coaching and one-on-one, because you are perceived as the expert, and people want to deal with the expert. People want to deal with the authority, and they want your help, and they're prepared to pay well to do it. Some people balk at $30,000. They're thinking, oh, never would be worth that. If you're an author, you are. And think of it this way: it's only $2,500 a month. So you'd probably charge monthly for if you're in that sort of industry, and people couldn't afford the $30K up front. So this is quite possible. And of course, running under that, you could certainly have e-classes running as well. So you could have a membership site like that. So there's a lot of ways to monetize off the back of your book. Just selling the book itself is never going to make you rich. It's everything else you can do with it that does. Now, remember, you're only producing a 150-page book, so you want to have a lot of extra information on your website. And then what you're doing is you're driving people from your book to your website at every stage. If you want this extra information, go look there. And this is what's going to create a list of people who've read your book, already trust you, and are looking to buy from you in the future. Look, it doesn't matter whether you're an online business or offline business. This is going to make you stand out, right? It's going to give you massive credibility. It's going to grow your business exponentially with a whole lot of different strategies. And the entire time living is so far out ahead of your competition that they become irrelevant. I'll just quickly show you some examples here so you understand. This is Jason Smith. He founded Back in Motion, a physiotherapy business. They had 60 locations around the country and over 350 staff, which at the time made them the largest such group in Australia. And they'll turn around about $60 million a year. The thing is, Jason understood the game behind the game and how to use the book to promote himself, his franchise, and even his franchisees. So he actually had 13,000 copies of his book printed in the first print run and literally received close to $500,000 worth of free media and PR. As you can imagine, that absolutely transformed the company. Now, how would you feel even getting just a fraction of that sort of media exposure for free? What would that do for you and your business? All right. I want to cover this example because it's the ultimate way to use a book, and you're going to get some great ideas out of this, and you might be able to implement some yourself. See, the initial one came out with him on the cover, and there was a little bit of space there. So he can put the association with, I'm associated with this, or he could put an advertiser on the cover. You can make a lot of money that way. Now, he then went out, and to help his franchisees, he removed that and he put each of those who wanted to participate, those franchisees and their name went on the cover to look like they had co-written the book with him. Okay. So that's the halo effect again I'm talking about. So to promote each of them, it's adapted this way. And those franchisees then each received copies for themselves for their own local marketing in their area. And that gave them their own credibility and prestige in their local markets. Why can't you do the same sort of thing? Now, this obviously took the brand to a whole new level. It helped him make a whole lot more self-franchisees. So he made a lot more money that way. But his game behind the game was to increase the number of franchisees and then list on the stock exchange as an exit strategy. And the book allowed him to do that. And in fact, it built his business so quickly and so well that he was able to sell the brand to an ASX-listed health group for $125 million. And that's why I make such a big deal about the game behind the game for authors, because this is what can be achieved. Yet it all starts with a book, just one book, right? Now, that example of Jason and Back in Motion and the free PR is typical of many of our authors. So I want to show you some other examples of those who use the book to generate massive free PR. And the whole time I want you to think about how could you do the same? Because it's mind-blowing what is possible and how much exposure you can get for free once you're the author and what that would do for your business. And the end result is, of course, that you have a whole lot of people coming to you wanting to pay for your product or service. They are completely pre-sold on you. You're not going to have the normal objections and trouble that you have. Not only do you have the authority that comes from being an author, but now the added credibility of being an author that the media has covered. And I love this one. This is Karina Francois. She was a naturopath wanting to know how she could grow a clinic, which is an actual physical bricks and mortar business. Well, to grow any business, you need to be seen as the authority, and that comes from being the author of a book. So she had to write one on the topic she's passionate about, which in this case was anything to do with natural health. So she wrote a book called Clean Food, Clear Thinking, How to Change Your Body, Change Your Mind. Now, that ended up becoming one of our best-selling books, and it really expanded her business in a massive way because of the free PR she received. So here's just some of the examples, okay? It was quite staggering what you got from that. But that then led into, now, you're not having to create extra content for this. This is just stuff you lift out of your book and give to the magazines that are requesting it. But because of the credibility this created for her, she ended up becoming a regular columnist in other women's magazines, which gave her even more credibility and really established her as an authority and gave her far more brand exposure. So that's just some of the ones there. This is when she started doing her own articles. You can see they're all listed there. Again, she's not having to create anything really extra, just lifting out of what she's already created. But she took it one step further, right? She then branched out with her own herbal tea range. They now sell all around the world. So that book had such a major impact and allowed her to do so much more as the authority figure, because now she's not just a naturopath, she's a best-selling author and a naturopath, which carries far more weight. Now, this one is a classic example. This is Jo Munro, right? Another one of our best-selling authors. When she came to the course, she didn't have a business. I don't think she was interested in starting a business, but when asked, what is your passion? She said shopping. So it was suggested she do a book about shopping tips, basically a shopaholics guide. So she wrote a book titled Savvy Shopaholic, you can see here, and she never imagined what impact that was going to have on her life. When the book came out, all of a sudden TV stations rang her up saying, can we get you on for an interview? Tell us what your hot shopping tips would be. Or she appeared on daytime TV actually doing exactly that. And it was such a huge success that they started using her as a regular. And so every week they had her on to do shopping tips, how to get the best prices, what retail stores had bargains on at the time, and all those sort of things. Now, she has literally done hundreds and hundreds of TV appearances. And as you can see, looking at it, she's not the typical TV news type that they're looking for. Why have they taken her on? Because she's an authority. She's the expert because she wrote the book. It goes even further. She was then approached by a jewelry manufacturing company. They'd seen her on TV, recognized her as a brand shopping ambassador, and based on authority from writing the book. So they offered her a paid opportunity to be the ambassador for a jewelry line. And they actually named it after her, right? Jo Munro Private Collection. A whole line of beautiful jewelry to be sold online under her personal brand. Now, how would you like that for yourself? Just from having a book published. Look, the simple fact is a book can open so many opportunities that you never saw coming or that you never thought possible. I mean, there's no way that Jo could have seen a jewelry line named after her. And all she had to do was put her face on it and be the brand ambassador for it. So again, these are the things that come from being an author. Look, regardless of what subject you decide to write about, what your book will get you that many people don't realize is access to other influencers and ideal clients, and is the perfect way to share your message, build your brand, support a charity, or make a massive difference to many others, all whilst creating your own legacy. Okay, you should be using your best-selling book as your billboard, business card, hand it out. It leaves far more impact. It's the single best lead generation tool online and offline you'll ever come across. Use it to open and unlock doors that you can't access, like Conrad did with his book. Attract your perfect customer, increase your sales and prices, get free media and PR, position you as the expert, and make you the market leader if done correctly. A book will, see, everyone looks at a book and says, well, it's just written information easily disseminated, right? That's just the very tip of the iceberg. And yet traditionally, that's what books have been used for. But if it's done properly, the book will actually develop your personal branding. It will establish you as the authority, the expert. It will give you a heap of information you can use for content marketing, like in the magazines Katrina was doing. It will build your list of people who are interested in buying from you. Speaking opportunities. I know not everyone wants to talk on stage. It scares some people, but look, there's a lot of money that can be made from it. So just consider it. Gives you unbelievable amount of free media and PR. It allows you to do joint ventures. Other people are going to approach you because they see you have value and they're going to want to tie in with you. It increases your value. It builds your confidence. It opens doors. It leverages your time better than anything else I've ever come across. And as I say, builds incredible wealth. Now, we've got to understand when it comes to publishing, most people think that you, the author, write something, you send it off to the publisher, they go, oh, isn't that wonderful? They make a finished book, they send it to the distributor, which goes to the bookstore, the customer buys it, and you get rich. This is the perception. It most certainly is not the reality, okay? I have never seen that. You got to understand they get so many applications that they have to turn down more than they could ever do. So you get rejection letters or rejection emails 80, 90% of the time. And let's look at the model. Because of that, they only want well-known or established proven authors, right? They have all of the say in your design, including the cover layout, the price of it, the typesetting, everything. You don't get a say in any of it. You cannot advertise or market in your book. So if you have sold advertising spots to people like I've just suggested, when the book comes out and it's not in there, you could find yourself in a lot of trouble. If you want to use your book to promote at seminars or, at gigs, you have to purchase your own book back from at 50% off retail. That hurts. They take 12 to 18 months to bring your book to market. That was the case. It's now 18 months to 2 years. And so we're actually dealing with authors at the moment who can't do that. They've done it before, and they're saying because their industry changes so quickly, well, by the time the book comes out 2 years later, the information, it's already outdated. You only get paid 3 to 5% of the cover price. So on a $30 book, it'll only be $1.50, but keep in mind, they get to decide what the book will be sold for. So you're probably going to make less. The good side is they handle all the distribution and bookstore orders and sales. So that's a good thing, right? So because of those limitations, a lot of people turn to self-publishing, and because of the high rate of rejection. And you can make a hell of a lot more money for, you print the book yourself, you do all of everything that's required, and then just subtract the cost of printing the book, and the rest is profit. You've got a lot more flexibility. You can get it done a lot quicker. You can sell your books into other markets. Well, let's talk about that. There are some problems. Get to the printers sooner, usually within 16 weeks, 4 months, compared to 18 months to 24 months. Keep control of your work and designs. You have all the say in how it's going to look. You can market and advertise in your own book, but you have to design, proofread, layout, and print your book to the international publishing standards. You have to arrange barcodes, ISBN numbers. You have to register with the national libraries and lodge a sample book. You have to request international library cataloguing numbers. You have to adhere to all of the Australian law around printing a book, and you have to hold and warehouse all your stock. And you have to package, ship, and deliver to your resellers weekly if you have resellers, because you have to find a book distributor, and you can't really do that as a self-publisher because they don't want to be dealing with self-publishers. You can't sell direct to the bookstores because the bookstores don't want to be dealing with thousands of authors. That's why they deal with a distributor. Distributors won't deal with you unless you're a publisher. Bookstores won't deal with individual authors. So it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And look, as good as technology's got and as good as self-published books can be these days, It's obvious to anyone in the industry which books are self-published, and book buyers just don't like self-published books. Call it snobbery, but that's just the way it is. So Global Publishing Group is the first entrepreneurial publisher in Australia. They've been established for 15 years now, and they've taken the very best of traditional publishing, the very best of self-publishing, got away with all of the negatives, and allowed authors to do that. And then we supply an incredible distribution network, over 50,000 outlets worldwide. Make it far easier and more profitable for authors than has ever been available before. And look, we have produced literally we've helped thousands and thousands of authors, but we've produced hundreds and hundreds of books. We've made many of them best-selling. As a percentage of authors published, we have the highest number of best-selling authors. And we've produced literally tons of media, online and offline, but the amount of print and TV and radio that we've been able to accrue for our people, in many cases, some of them struggling businesses, some of them just startup businesses, it's taken them to a whole new level. So ask yourself, what would it be like to walk into a bookstore and see your book on the shelf? What would that do for you, and what would that do for your business? I mentioned Conrad Bobulak before. Here he is with his AMG Mercedes, which he could only afford because of what the book has done for him. You can see him with some of his awards for his books there, his best-selling books. He went to a shopping centre once, and his little daughter ran into a bookstore and came running out, "Daddy, Daddy, your book's on the shelf." And he went in, and he took this photo and sent it to us, because you can see he's positioned between Tony Robbins, Warren Buffett, and just above Robert Kiyosaki. How do you think that made him feel? And how would that make you feel? What would that do for you? Look, if you're interested in knowing more, there's a limit to how much I can say in such a short space of time, but I do run a 3-day, I am the CEO of Global Publishing Group, and I do run a 3-day webinar explaining exactly how to write a best-selling book and how to grow your brand. You don't have to write it, as I say, you can dictate it, but I show you all the tips, tricks, and techniques. I show you everything behind, I really peek behind the curtains of the entire publishing industry. And this is not a pitch fest. I won't have a whole lot of people up there trying to sell anything to you, nor is it just me talking for 3 days straight. This is an actual workshop. We will work with you and craft your idea. We will learn about your business concept. We'll help develop the game behind the game. And then we'll show you how to make a book that sells. We will work with you on your title and subtitle. That will actually be tested in the workshop. We'll work on the back cover, because that has to be done a certain way. And there's no other publisher in Australia that knows how to do it. I know, I look at all of them. If you want to generate the best sales, we know how to make the back of your book look like a sales letter. From all that, we will then work on the content of your book. We'll at least get the chapters laid out, and then it's up to you just to go back and create that content, which, as I say, can be done in as little as 3 hours, right? This can all be completed in just a few days and give you far greater understanding and far greater confidence in the whole process. Now, the venue, that's got the wrong date, right date, wrong place. So 24th, 26th of March, it's actually at VOCO. We've had to change from the Brisbane Airport Convention Centre. So it's VOCO, 85 North Quay in Brisbane CBD. Look, seats strictly are limited. That's not a marketing ploy. I know that's something that JD would normally throw in there, but we do have a limited space. We've got a limited team. It's a workshop. We need to help work with you. So we're going to do a whole lot of coaching. We're going to get you to break up into little sessions and then into little groups, and we'll come around and work with you in groups and one-on-one. So for that reason alone, we can't have a huge room. Seats are strictly limited. And if you are interested, I'd ask you to come along. I am going to put a link into I'll stop sharing, and I will put a link into the chat box so that you can click on that and learn more if you're interested. Now, certainly if you've got any questions at this stage, yell out and just put them in the chat box, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but just copy them, or just actually should be able to just click on this link when I put it in here. Okay, not able to do that, people. I'm terribly sorry. What I will do is when we'll send out a copy of this recording for you, and when I do that, I will ask JD to include this link for you. So has anyone got any questions at all? Let's have a chat. Here we go. Right. No, can't do it in there. All right, folks, if there's no other questions, I thank you all very much for your time. Thanks for listening, and I will get this recording to you, and we will include the link there. Now, the other way you can do, if you want to look at it right now, go to bestsellerevent.com, bestsellerevent.com, and can I type that in there? It's not letting me do anything with this chat. Here we go. What about here? That's what we wanted to do. Okay, guys, if you click on that, that's the best way to get access to it. Just simply click on that link, go along, have a look at the other information there. If you've got any questions, there's a phone number there you can give us a call on. Feel free to email us. We only do this a couple of times a year, and so this is not something you want to miss. If you've got any interest at all, let us know. Thank you again so much for your time, and look forward to seeing you at the event and on the best selling list. Good on you guys. Thanks. Bye.